Hi everyone, my name is Ashvini. Welcome to this video. Usually I talk about books on my blog and on my Instagram. Both are, well, the blog is dreaminbiblio.ca and my Instagram is @dreaminbiblio. But today I thought I would try something different. I've always been super interested in BookTube. I love BookTube and that's where I usually get most of my recommendations anyways. I just never really felt like it was the right time to start making BookTube videos at any point, but I have so many books that I'm so excited to read in 2022. Or just books I really want to talk about that come out in 2022, and I feel like a video gives me the space and the time to do that in ways that a blog post or an Instagram post doesn't. So that's why I'm going to be trying this. But basically I made a blog post and it was a 2021 most anticipated reads blog post, and last year, I feel like coming into the year, I had a lot of books I was super excited for. I'm very much sort of an emotional on impulse reader, so I'll just read whatever I kind of want to in a moment. I don't really follow a list. And in fact, TBR piles can feel so constricting to me. But last year, there were a series of like books by authors that I had already read and loved that I was so like gung-ho, diehard, so pumped for going into the year, and that included things like Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I was super excited for Survive the Night by Riley Sager. I ended up being a little bit disappointed with that one, but that's okay. And also Take Me Home Tonight by Morgan Matson, which I really loved. And so I had like a set list of books coming into the year that I knew I was going to read no matter what. This year, I don't know why, maybe it's just a me thing, but I feel like there aren't as many books that I am super pumped for in a similar way. I don't really have that same sense of urgency coming into the year and looking at like the lineups and what's coming out. I do have a bunch of books that I'm interested in that I'm going to be mentioning today, and you know, who knows, maybe those will interest you too, and maybe you'll want to read them. That's kind of how I find all the books that I want to read. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be getting to all of these books, but these are just some that have caught my eye and I'm kind of excited to look into. So the first book I'm super excited for is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham. She is a debut author, and so people who are in America and subscribe to Book of the Month, which I am so jealous of, by the way. I really, really wish that Book of the Month shipped to Canada, but it doesn't. At Book of the Month, please ship to Canada because I will buy it. But people who have Book of the Month will have already gotten the opportunity to potentially pick this book as their pick of the month because it was available to Book of the Month users for the month of December. But this book actually does come out in January, and I'm so excited because it is a thriller, and the premise really reminds me of All the Missing Girls by Miranda. In this book, we follow a protagonist named Chloe Davis, who basically, when she was 12, 6 teenage girls went missing in her small Louisiana town. By the end of the summer, her father had been arrested as a serial killer and promptly put in prison, and she's basically been dealing and grappling with all of that in the years since. 20 years later, we see Chloe as a psychologist in a private practice in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and getting ready for her wedding. She feels like she's finally got a fragile grasp on happiness, but she's still dealing with the fallout from all of those events so many years ago. And then a local teenage girl goes missing, and then another, and that terrifying summer seems to come crashing back to her. You know, is she paranoid, or is she seeing parallels to that summer from when she was a kid? And for the second time in her life, she finds herself wondering, is she about to unmask a killer? This has been described as a lyrical thriller, which I feel like I kind of found in that book by Laura Dave that came out last year. The Last Thing He Told Me. Sorry, my shelf is over there. But The Last Thing He Told Me, which was a lyrical thriller I read last year and really loved. And so if this book has like that kind of writing, I'm like, sign me up. Like, I'm so pumped for this book, and I'm really excited to get into this book, hopefully in just a couple weeks when my hold at the library finally becomes available. The second book that I want to talk about is called Cherish, Farrah by Bethany C. Morrow. And this is a book that I just kind of found on Goodreads. And the cover is absolutely stunning. Like, look at this, the pool, the red lettering, it is so beautiful. and I'm not gonna lie, the cover drew me in immediately. But the synopsis sounds crazy, okay? And this book is what is being described as a social horror. It's apparently perfect for fans of the movie Get Out. And I don't do well with horror at all. I tried to read Mexican Gothic a couple years back, and I barely made it through. Not because it was necessarily scary, but just because it was so just unnerving and gross, and it made me so deeply uncomfortable. And so usually that's what horror does to me. I tried to avoid the genre like the plague, but ever so often, because of hype or because of the premise or whatever, I will get drawn in to a horror book and I'll give it a try. And so I think that's what's going to happen with this book right here, because it actually sounds so interesting. It's about a 17-year-old girl named Farrah Turner, who is one of 2 Black girls in her country club community. And she's actually the only one with Black parents, because her friend Cherish, the other Black girl, is adopted by a wealthy white family, the Whitmans. So Farrah considers Cherish to be white girl spoiled. That's what she says. She says that with Brienne and Jerry Whitman as parents, Farrah feels that Cherish is kind of given this adoration and coddling that she's never seen before and she can't even fathom. And so this kind of creates a sort of dissonance between Farrah and Cherish that Farrah attempts to exploit. So her own family is unexpectedly confronted with foreclosure, and so Farrah decides to stay with Cherish and the Whitmans, but as she stays with the Whitmans, strange things starts happening, including debilitating illnesses, upsetting fever dreams, and an inexplicable tension with Cherish's hothead boyfriend. And also a strange journal that seems to keep track of what is happening to Farrah, though she insists it's nothing she can't handle. From the outside, her parents start to warn her about the weirdness of the Whitman household and how things don't really seem to be quite all right there. But soon everything begins to unravel when the Whitmans invite Farrah even closer, and it's anyone's guess who is really in control. This book sounds so interesting, and it comes out February 8th, and so I'm super excited to read it. This third book is a book that everyone and their mother is anticipating this year. It's actually, I would say this is a book that I am for sure gonna read. I'm so excited to read it, and it is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. The cover, oh my goodness, this looks beautiful. Just the purple lettering, the dark sort of Paris apartment vibes is beautiful. And it's basically, this book follows a girl named Jess who needs a fresh start. She's broke and alone. She just left her job in less than ideal circumstances. And her half-brother doesn't sound thrilled, but she asks him if she could crash with him for a bit in Paris. And he didn't necessarily say no, he doesn't really say yes, but she shows up anyways, and she shows up to find a very nice apartment that she thinks that Ben would not have been able to afford. And just when she goes to seek out Ben, he's not there. The longer that Ben stays missing, the more Jess starts to dig into her brother's situation, and the more questions that she has. Ben's neighbors are an eclectic bunch and not particularly friendly. So Jess may have come to Paris to escape her past, but it's starting to look more like Ben's future that's in question. There are a whole cast of characters here: the socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, the concierge. It gives me Only Murders in the Building vibes, the show with Selena Gomez. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone knows something they're not telling. Okay, this next book is another book that comes out February 22nd, 2022, and it's just one that I sort of found on the internet, and I'm interested in looking deeper into this book. I've never read any books by this author before, Julie Otsuka, but it looks really interesting and fascinating, and so I'm interested to see how, to learn more about this book. This book is called The Swimmers. And it's about the swimmers who are unknown to each other except through their private routines. Like this person's in the slow lane, this person's in the fast lane, and the solace each takes in their morning or afternoon naps. But when a crack appears at the bottom of the pool, they are cast into an unforgiving world without comfort or relief. So basically the pool closes is what I assume, and each of their routines are disrupted. One of these swimmers is Alice, who is slowly losing her memory. For Alice, the pool was a final stand against the darkness of her encroaching dementia. Without the fellowship of the other swimmers and the routine of her daily laps, she is plunged into dislocation and chaos, swept into memories of her childhood and the Japanese internment camp in which she spent the war. Narrated by Alice's daughter, who witnesses her stark and devastating decline, The Swimmers is a searing, intimate story of mothers and daughters, the sorrows of implacable loss, written in spellbinding, incantatory. That was really bad. I'm so sorry. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen. Incantatory prose. I hope that last one was the correct pronunciation. If not, I'm so sorry. This sounds so interesting and so deep, and I do want to read a lot more literary fiction this year, and so I'm excited to dive into this. Okay, so this next book is a book by this author who I read a book by last year and absolutely loved, and that is Lynn Painter. She has a new book this year coming out on March 1st, and it is called Mr. Wrong Number. So last year I read Better Than the Movies by her, which was a cutesy YA contemporary novel that combined tropes from many different teen rom-coms, you know, things like 10 Things I Hate About You, She's All That, and all of these different movies. And it was so adorable. I loved the writing, and so I am really excited for this new book that she has coming out this year. Mr. Wrong Number is an adult contemporary or an adult contemporary romance. And it basically follows a woman named Olivia Marshall who believes that she has always had bad luck. And she's kind of known as the family screw up, unfortunately. At least that's the way she feels. But then one day she gets a random text that is, "What are you wearing?" from a random wrong number. And it turns into one of the most interesting, albeit anonymous relationships of her life. And she finally is starting to think that maybe things are on the upswing. Meanwhile, we have this guy named Colin Beck, who is always considered Olivia his best friend's annoying little sister, but then she moves in with them after she's had a spout of bad luck, and he realizes that, oh my gosh, Olivia is like a totally different person, and he starts to look at her in a very different way. But he's sure that he can keep his distance until he realizes that she is the irresistible Miss Misdial that he's been texting for weeks. And now he has to decide whether to turn the heat up or ghost her before things get messy. So this sounds so interesting. I love that sort of wrong number, wrong email trope, and I love Lynn Painter's writing, and so I'm excited to dive into this book. Okay, this next book, I've said okay so many times. I'm so sorry. It's gonna be something that I'll have to work on, making sure that I don't say that word a lot. But this book that I want to talk about is the last in a series. It's almost the last in a series. I'm going to talk about this series again a little bit later in the video. But this is book 6 in the Field Party series. It's the book Game Changer by Abbi Glines, which is expected to come out on March 15th. The release date has been pushed back a few times now, and so I'm really excited for this book. I don't think we have a synopsis yet, at least I don't see one on Goodreads. And, you know, if you don't know, the books follow... They're YA contemporaries, and they follow different members of a boys' football team in Alabama, and it's their stories and how they get together with various girls in their town, and each book follows a different player and their love story, and so I think it's really cute. Okay, we've had to switch devices here, so I know there's been a little bit of a dip in camera quality. I am so sorry. Please bear with me, and I will make sure this doesn't happen in future videos. But the next book that I'm super excited to be talking about is Family of Liars by E. Lockhart, which comes out May 3rd. And if you're wondering, yes, this is apparently a prequel to We Were Liars by E. Lockhart, which came out so long ago, I think maybe 2016. and I remember it blew up on BookTube, and it has recently blown up, I know, on Book Talk. Family of Liars is, again, set before the events of the original novel. This is on a windswept private island off the coast of Massachusetts, a hungry ocean churning with secrets and sorrow, a fiery, addictive heiress, an irresistible, unpredictable boy, a summer of unforgivable betrayal and terrible mistakes. Welcome back to the Sinclair family. They were always liars. So once again, we are really just keeping everything a secret here with the synopsis. We've got, the puzzling details, and let's just see how this goes. The next book is one that I am anticipating really hard, and that is See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which comes out on May 3rd, 2022. The cover looks really similar to a particular book by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which I read, devoured in one day, and loved so much, and that is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, which came out, I believe, in 2020, and I read it in 2020 as well. And it was a hate-to-love romance about high school valedictorians, two people who were nominees for valedictorian, and they were awaiting the results, and it basically took place over the course of that one day, and they fell in love, and it was so beautiful, and I loved that book. So I'm so excited for See You Yesterday, which doesn't actually take place in high school, but actually takes place in college. And as someone who is currently in university, I always love reading books that are about people who are, in that same stage. And so this one follows someone named Barrett Bloom, who is hoping college will be a fresh start after a messy high school experience. But when school begins on September 21st, the 21st night of September, everything goes wrong. She's humiliated by the know-it-all in her physics class, she botches her interview for the college paper, and at a party that night, she accidentally sets a frat on fire. She panics and flees, and when she realizes her roommate locked her out of their dorm, she falls asleep in the common room. The next morning, Barrett's perplexed to find herself back in her dorm room bed, no longer smelling of ashes and crushed dreams. It's September 21st, again. So it's a Groundhog Day scenario, and basically she relives that day over and over again, but she also realizes that her love interest, Miles, is also stuck in this Groundhog Day, and they both know that they're reliving this day over and over again, and so they got to find a way to break this cycle and get back into their normal lives. And so it sounds so cute. I'm so excited about the setting, but also the Groundhog Day aspect I love as well, and so I am really looking forward to this book. Okay, and the next book that I am also anticipating is yet another book that is a thriller. If you haven't already guessed, I really have a thing for reading thrillers, but this one is yet another book that is by a really popular author. So I talked about The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Everyone and their mother is anticipating that book, and similarly, I'm sure, I haven't heard too many people talk about this yet, but I'm sure that in no time a lot of people will be talking about this book because it is by another one of those authors that is just so famous in the thriller genre, and that is Ruth Ware, and her new book, The It Girl, which comes out July 12th, 2022. This book is about a woman named April Coutts Cliveden. I hope I said her last name right. She was the first person that Hannah Jones met at Oxford. Vivacious, bright, occasionally vicious, the ultimate it girl, she quickly pulled Hannah into her dazzling orbit. Together, they developed a group of devoted and inseparable friends, Will, Hugh, Ryan, and Emily, during their first term. By the second term, April was dead. Now, a decade later, Hannah, the girl that was pulled into April's circle, and her husband Will are expecting their first child. And the man convicted of killing April, former Oxford porter John Neville, has died in prison. Relieved to have finally put the past behind her, Hannah's world is rocked when a young journalist comes knocking and presents new evidence that Neville may have been innocent. As Hannah reconnects with old friends and delves deeper into the mystery surrounding April's death, she realizes that the friends she thought she all knew have something to hide, including a murder. So, This gives me dark academia vibes. It reminds me a little bit of The Maidens, which came out last year and followed this woman who is visiting her alma mater of Cambridge and like trying to make sense of things there. And so this is Oxford, you know, but anything Oxbridge, anything dark in Oxbridge, I'm here for. So this sounds great. The next one that I want to talk about is called The Last to Vanish. It is another Meg and Miranda thriller. I know this has been a lot of thrillers, guys, I'm sorry. But The Last to Vanish is, it has a really nice cover. It's got the trademark big font, capital letters. It's about Abigail Lovett, who 10 years ago fell into a job she loves, managing the Passage Inn, a cozy upscale resort nestled in the North Carolina mountain town of Cutter's Pass. Cutter's Pass is best known for its outdoor offerings, including rafting and hiking, with access to the Appalachian Trail by way of a gorgeous waterfall, and its mysterious history. As the book begins, the string of unsolved disappearances that has haunted the town is once again thrust into the spotlight when journalist Landon West, who is staying at the inn to investigate the story of the vanishing trail, then disappears himself. Abbi has sometimes felt like an outsider within the community, but she's come to view Cutter's Pass as her home. When Landon's brother Trey shows up looking for answers, Abbi can't help but feel the town closing ranks, and she's still on the outside. When she finds incriminating evidence that might bring them closer to the truth, Abbi basically then discovers how she knows very little about her coworkers, her neighbors, and even those closest to her. So yeah, I think it's giving me a mix of The Last House Guest and also All the Missing Girls, but also a little bit of The Perfect Stranger there. So I don't know, this sounds really interesting, and Meg and Miranda novels are a hit or miss for me, but there are some that I've really loved, and so I'm ready to delve into this one as well. The next book that I want to talk about is Nothing More to Tell by Karen McManus, which comes out August 30th. This is yet another standalone by her, though I think she is best known for her duology, One of Us is Lying. Though I guess I should call it a trilogy now because it was announced a couple months ago that the third book is coming out. And that is, I believe it's called One of Us is Back. So we've got One of Us is Lying, One of Us is Next, and One of Us is Back, the last of which is coming out in January of 2023, I believe. So a little while away, but I'm so excited for it nonetheless. This one follows a girl named Bryn who left St. Ambrose School following the murder of her favorite teacher, a story that made headlines after the teacher's body was found by 3 of the students from the academy in the woods behind their school. The case was never solved, and Bryn eventually moved home, and now she's starting her dream internship at a true crime show, and she's determined to find out what really happened. So it gives me a little bit of Good Girl's Guide to Murder vibes. The kids who found Mr. Larkin are her way in, and her ex-best friend, Trip Talbot, was one of them. Without his account of events, the other 2 kids might have gone down for Mr. Larkin's murder. They've never forgotten what Trip did for them that day. Just like he hasn't forgotten that everything he told the police was a lie. Oh my. Digging into the past is bound to shake up the present, and as Bryn begins to investigate basically what happened all those years ago, she begins to maybe not all those years ago. Oh no, yeah, 4 years ago. She begins to uncover secrets that might change everything about St. Ambrose, about Mr. Larkin, and about her ex-best friend, Trip Talbot. 4 years ago, someone got away with murder, and the most terrifying part is basically that they never left. And so this sounds incredible. I know some people feel mixed feelings about her standalones, but I do really enjoy Karen McManus' standalones. I loved You'll Be the Death of Me, which came out in 2021 and was one of the last books I read this past year. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And so I'm really excited for Nothing More to Tell. Okay, I know this has been a crazy long video, and there's always more and more that I could talk about, but I'm gonna mention one more book, and I guess this is by no means like a definitive list of all the books that I'm anticipating, because like I said, that could go on forever, but right now, looking pretty far into 2022, one of the books that I am super super crazy excited for is The Last Field Party by Abbi Glines. And like I promised, we're going to be talking about the Field Party series again. This one, I don't know if it's categorized as YA or adult fiction, because it does follow the different couples from the Field Party series, I believe maybe 10 years? Yes, okay, 10 years in the future. So it follows the couples from the Field Party series 10 years in the future, and they gather for a special event, and it's like this reunion book. And I always love those, and so I am so pumped for this one. And I believe it comes out August 9th, 2022. So, you know, still not quite the end of the year. Who knows what the end of the year will hold? This is as far as I've researched into 2022 in terms of books I'm anticipating. And it's by no means a definitive list, but I hope you found some books that you might be interested in reading yourself, and found some inspo from this video. So I'm excited to film more videos like these, hopefully, and Happy New Year, everyone!